Well, thanks, Mike, for that. As Jennifer mentioned, I am the Director of Operations for the Enbridge Superior region. I'm based in Superior. Been there for the better part of this year. I actually moved there after the first of the year. Officially started late last year. And the Superior region starts up in very northeastern tip of North Dakota, comes through Minnesota, and then we also cover parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, and so pretty good sized region, and we've got about 230 people throughout. So Mike was did a great job covering our the more tactical side of things. What I'd like to cover today is the structure that's been developed over the years with what's called the incident command system, the unified command system that's been developed, and you know, there's been a lot of references to Marshall and to that incident there, and I think when you take a look at a couple of the big learnings, the big learning that I'm going to talk about today is our emergency preparedness and our emergency response. Dave talked quite a bit about our integrity program. I think that's definitely another area that there's been significant focus on as well, and we're continuing to lead the industry in that. So with that, once we wrap up, I'm sure there'll be more questions for Mike and myself, and we've got a lot of smart people here from Enbridge as well that can help us out. So just real quick summary, what I'm going to talk about today, the response planning tools that we have in place, integration that we've done with local resources. We talked a lot about that already, so I won't spend a great time talking about that. The incident command system and the response capabilities that we have throughout the region, cleanup methodologies, and then we'll open it up. So this is a picture of the cover of our instant or integrated contingency plan. Basically, it's our Bible. When we go out and we respond to any incident, this is what's with us. This is what's providing the guidance. Been a ton of planning that's gone into this over the years, and it's very comprehensive. I don't know, 4 or 5 inches thick, 3-ring binder, and it's important to note that the sections are the first section that's listed there. They're very similar for every operating region. The way they're structured, and really that kind of gets into our hierarchy. The second section really covers and puts into a lot of detail of the more region-specific items that are unique for every region. And then we've just rolled them out in Canada. We've had them in the U.S. now for a few years, and so there's just a huge magnitude of work that's gone into that over the years. So with the 2 sections I mentioned, just to summarize those real quick, the first section has our just the response management system, safety considerations that we need to be aware of, the safety data sheets, emergency notifications, response procedures, exercise and training requirements, and then the more detailed region-specific items cover the necessary information for unusually sensitive areas, spill response equipment, local notification procedures, and emergency response time maps. The other thing that we have as well, it is quite large, the binder. We do have a condensed version as well for every region that a little bit more convenient for the first responders that we have throughout the organization can carry in their trucks and have available. So that's kind of the higher level. The next area that we're getting into is more with getting into the tactics that we're talking through with our planning. We develop things for certain areas called the Tactical Response Plan, and Mr. Keck talked about that earlier. We've got the Tactical Response Plan that really gets into the details of the specific areas for the straits. It's a very large binder as well, and it goes through and it's basically gives us the chance to evaluate certain areas and think through how we would respond if we were to have an incident. And it gets into as much detail as what we call 204s, and it allows the responders to know boom that they need, and skimmers and boats and personnel and things like that. So getting into, like I say, a significant amount of detail. The other thing that we do as well, not quite as much detail, but is our control point mapping. That's getting into various locations along the pipeline system. It's additional thought put into it. Not quite as much detail as the tactical response plan, but there again, it gives us a basis to start off of in the occurrence of a spill. Then we talked a little bit earlier as well. We've got our HCAs, or high consequence area maps. This is an area that I'm sure looks familiar to everybody. This is just the high consequence area map that we have for the south end there. These are, like I say, developed for every region for the entire pipeline system. They give us basically identify the resources for incident management team to look and make rapid decisions on which areas are a priority to protect during the response. They're created with input from area stakeholders as well as national data that's available. So we're getting into now a little bit more detail with how the plan is developed and why we call it integrated. This basically is a depiction of kind of how the tiered process works. There's been some discussion, I think, on each of these areas, but our ICP is based on a national framework for emergency response planning. So we basically reference all these other areas for their contingency plans to make sure that they're all talking and that everybody's seeing each other's plans. The national plan is part of a federal regulation that requires regions to develop their own regional contingency plans that are specific, that are specific information. Northern Michigan also has developed an area contingency plan that provides detailed information on how federal, state, and local agencies will respond, and then our ICP is spun off of that as well. So the next step is really getting into how we plan, and all these things looks great on paper or in binders on people's bookshelves, but until you really test them, you don't know. And I think that's where we've really had a significant focus over the last few years with what we do to plan and how we test our tools. We work closely with the federal, state, and local agencies and other stakeholders to continuously improve and strengthen our emergency response program. So basically, this is accomplished through joint exercises, sharing of training resources, and requesting input on the planning tools. The example that we've talked a lot today about is the upcoming spill response drill at the Straits here at the end of September. Been with a lot of people in this room have been extremely busy over the last year or so planning that, and so looking forward to really getting out there and testing it. It's the largest drill that Enbridge has done ever, and so we're looking forward to exercising our tools here and learn from it. You know, a lot of these, that's always a big takeaway, along with every response. You know, Ralph talked a lot about that, the lessons learned. It's absolutely critical, and that's all part of our process that we go through after a response or after a drill, is to do a hot wash and say what can we do better next time, and what did and didn't work. Next, this is just a quick picture here. This is our handbook, basically, our incident management handbook, another tool that we've developed for those first responders that gives them a quick guide on what to do as well. And this gets more into the overall structure and how the incident command system needs to be set up initially, and gives some guidance in that. Moving on, this just to kind of give you a general picture here. This is what a typical organizational chart will look like for incident command structure. It's based on a jurisdictional responsibilities, assets that contributing agencies bring to the incident, and things like that. So it doesn't always look like this. It's highly dependent on the size of the incident and the consequences. But with that, the operations section, those are the guys that are generally in the field. They're focused on the cleanup activities, and then we've got our planning section, who are our overall. They're planning the overall event. The logistics section, just basically getting the equipment lined up, things like that are needed. Food always becomes a very critical thing in any drill or exercise that we go through, or response, and it always seems to be a learning there that we take away, and then the financial part as well, and so it's got to make sure that everything's in line with the response. So from a public perspective, the two primary areas are the public information officer and liaison officer as well. The PIO, they basically provide information to media and stakeholders and the public. The liaison officer acts as a conduit for stakeholders and public input into the response. So just kind of gives you an overall idea. People from the public, that's who they may see. I took my time. The next, this is basically real quick. Enbridge's kind of how we've set up our incident management support. So the guys in the field that I mentioned that are actually, you know, we've got our incident management team, which relates back to the earlier slide, and then we've got the guys in the field with the field response team. We've also set up within our organization the more strategic groups that look at things from you know, making sure that we're getting resourcing that we need, making sure that those of us in the field can stay focused in the field, and so they take care of a lot of the other items as well. And something that we've developed is our E3RT. So that's our Enbridge Enterprise Emergency Response Team, and that's been around for what, 3-4 years-ish?
Going on 4 years.
4 years. So essentially, that a lot of the people that we'll see at the Straits, they're from across the organization, and we all make up the E3RT, and they're the people that are first call, you know, whenever we realize there's an event. They're the first ones on the plane to come and respond and participate as needed. So we talked a little bit earlier about the response capabilities. One part of Enbridge's spill response program is to maintain spill response equipment along the pipeline system. This equipment is strategically placed in Gould City, Mackinac City, and Indian River to meet a response time frame of less than 2 hours to the Straits. Additional resources will be called in from throughout the U.S. in the event of a release if needed. We're continually reviewing and updating our response equipment and resources to ensure we are prepared. So one of the things we've got Marine Pollution Control, they're our OSRO on record. They're also the Coast Guard's OSRO, and they've got contracts in place with Mackinac Environment in St. Ignace as well. So very, very close response time in that regard. The other thing that we're in the process of doing is we're actually starting interviews tomorrow for a team lead position that's going to be focused solely on our emergency response in this area, and so he or she will have a group of employees that will be focused on emergency response and improving our abilities here. So I know I'm out of time. Real quick, we've got a lot of training as well that we do. It gives you an idea of the number of exercises that we've done. Obviously, they're not as big as the strengths exercise, but we do a lot of exercises as well, and then throughout the organization. And really, I know Mike touched on all these. These are just some pictures that we had from submerged oil recovery techniques and some new deployment, things like that. But Mike definitely covered all that. And that's really all I wanted to cover today. So again, I thank you for having us here. Hospitality has been fantastic. And I hope that people are able to leave with a little bit more information than what they came with. I think it's one of those things that we're continuing to evolve, and if you look at Enbridge within the past 5 years, the improvements that we've been able to accomplish, I think, are pretty amazing. So with that, open it up to questions.
Okay. I asked Jennifer for a moment to try to connect the dots here. I think we have an opportunity based on the last two presentations especially. I think Trent did a great presentation on the planning activities that Enbridge and all the agencies are undertaking right now. And I thought Mike Popa did a great job of demonstrating for all of you what the scale of resources would look like for an open water response in the Straits. I mean, he talked about river resources, but he also gave you some fodder for your imaginations about what's necessary out of the Straits. Now, at lunchtime, Peter Manning did a talk. Peter, are you still here?
I am.
Okay.
I'm hiding.
Okay. Hey, Peter talked about, Peter was asked by someone, what are we going to do in the short term while some of the longer term recommendations of the task force are being implemented? And someone, or I think he responded, well, the low-hanging fruit was no heavy oil in line 5. In my opinion, a secondary response would be, let's really emphasize emergency response planning in the Straits, tip of the Mitt, the UP. So how do we do that? Well, Trent talked about the planning that we do. We talked about exercises. We talked a lot about exercises, but I'm asking you to think about what are the exercises? What are we exercising? We're exercising a plan, and in the plan that Trent showed to you, we've got lots of mapping of sensitive areas. We've got lots of mapping of tactical areas. We talked a lot about response contractors who can be here eventually to do this work, but we haven't talked a whole lot about what resources are actually here in the Straits area in northern lower Michigan right now. Part of any contingency plan isn't just what you're going to do and where you're going to do it, it's how you're going to do it. And how you're going to do it is contingent upon the resources that you have available to you to do it. It's also contingent upon what your target is. And Dr. Anderson from NOAA today gave us some leading, cutting-edge picture of what that target is going to look like. He showed you the washing machine effect in the straits. And for the first time, we are beginning to see that the target could be 5 miles on either side of the bridge, depending on how long it goes, maybe 10 miles on either side of the bridge, maybe more. Now, at the outset of today's session, I talked about getting out there quickly, doing it fast, responding aggressively and assertively. So these are all pieces of the equation, all elements, variables in the equation. And the one that I think that we as the regulatory and response agencies need to be working with the company on is about response resources in the straits. And the Coast Guard, Mr. Keck, and I, and the PHMSA people, and the Enbridge people will likely be continuing to have these discussions going forward, because I think we all know that while we have some resources, we've got Macro Environmental, we've got MTC, we don't have enough. We're not likely to have enough. There are no resources like what Mike Pope was showing you available in the straits. They'll get here eventually, but it won't be in 2 hours. Okay? And Mr. Keck and I talk a lot about this. Mr. Keck Boss and I talk a lot about this. Enbridge is thinking about it. They have commissioned oil spill response experts to evaluate their response resources. That's an ongoing process. Is that right, Stevens?
Right.
Okay. And by the way, the guys at this table over here from Enbridge are the ones who are in charge of response planning and emergency preparedness. So they understand what I'm talking about. But it's a question that hasn't been asked here, or a comment that hasn't been made, and I wanted to make sure that it was explicit today. We've got work to do on resource deployment up here. Okay?
Thank you.